There was a time when the name Howard Hughes meant adventure, innovation, and eventually fear. But before the headlines, before the airplanes, before the reclusive billionaire in darkened hotel rooms, there was just a boy in Texas. A boy with a father who drilled through stone. A mother who boiled sheets until they steamed in the sun. And a restless curiosity that no door could keep closed. Tonight, we begin at that beginning, before Hollywood, before Las Vegas, before madness and myth. We begin with the child who looked at the sky and whispered a vow that would shape the rest of his life. Before we begin, if you truly enjoy these stories, hitting like or subscribe helps me keep making them, and hopefully helps you keep drifting off. Let me know where you're listening from tonight. I'm always amazed by the places people tune in. Now, get comfortable, take a slow breath in, and let it out. Because once this story begins, chances are you'll be asleep before it ends. It is Houston, 1912. The air is heavy even before dawn. Cicadas buzz in the live oaks. A ceiling fan turns slowly above a boy's bed, pushing the warm air in sluggish circles. That boy is you. Howard Robart Hughes, 6 years old. Your sheets cling to your skin in the night heat, but already, before the sun has risen, you are awake. On the kitchen table sits a broken toy, a little wind-up contraption, its gears jammed. To other children, it would be a disappointment. To you, it is an invitation. You've fetched a screwdriver from your father's workshop. Your small hands pry open the case. Screws roll across the oilcloth. Springs pop loose. You do not flinch. Your eyes light up. The world is made of parts, and parts can be put back together. Your father appears in the doorway. Howard Hughes, Sr., broad shoulders, stern face, but his mouth curls into a faint smile when he sees what you're doing. In his pocket, he carries the patent for the Sharp Hughes rotary drill bit, a tool that will tear through hard rock where others only snap, a tool that is about to change the oil industry and your family's life forever. He watches you tinkering. Make it better, son, he says. Not just encouragement, a directive, a creed. It will echo in your ears long after he is gone. Your mother, Alain, watches from the parlor. Her hands are never still, wiping, polishing, scrubbing. She fears germs the way some fear thieves. She checks your temperature with the back of her hand when the weather changes. She boils your handkerchiefs in scalding water. She insists you scrub your hands until they shine. One wash is never enough. Twice is better. 3 times is best. You absorb these rituals without question. Soap, hot water, caution. Your mother's devotion is love, but also obsession. And inside you, seeds take root. Seeds that will grow wild one day. But for now, you are just her boy. Shiny shoes, spotless hands, obedient yet restless, clean yet curious. Afternoons belong to machines. Your bicycle, stripped apart and reassembled. A kite, its frame strengthened with cloth, tugging hard enough to lift you from the grass. Copper wires twisted into a homemade radio set. Static fills your ears, then faintly, a voice. A voice from a city hundreds of miles away. You grin, wide-eyed. Distance collapses. The invisible has been caught and bent into sound. You scribble diagrams in a notebook. Smudged pages fill with sketches of gears, wings, circuits. Machines do not confuse you. Machines obey. Unlike people, at night you lie awake in bed. The fan hums. You stare out the window at the Texas stars. Not mysterious, not unreachable. They look like rivets in a vast, invisible machine, waiting for someone to climb up and tighten them. Houston itself is changing. Oil derricks claw the horizon. Streetcars clang along dusty roads. Bankers in linen suits tip their hats to your father. Churchwomen nod politely to your mother, whispering once they pass. The Hughes name is starting to mean something. But you are still just a boy with grease under your fingernails, caught between your father's empire of steel and your mother's empire of soap. Then comes the silence. Your mother, Arlene, collapses suddenly. Her heart stills without warning. The house fills with whispers. Doctors, neighbors, clergy, but nothing can undo it. The gloves in her drawer remain folded. Her voice is gone. The rituals remain, but without her. You scrub your hands harder after that, as if cleanliness could bring her back, as if soap could ward off death itself. You lean on your father more than ever. He takes you out to the oil fields. Men in sweat-stained shirts wrestle with steel. The earth yields its black treasure grudgingly. Your father tells you, this is what feeds the future. You listen with the stillness of someone who knows that everything can vanish without warning. And then, again, it happens. Your father is gone, collapsed, miles from home. The telegram arrives. Your world shrinks to the size of an envelope. You are 16 and alone. Courts argue. Relatives circle. Bankers take meetings with themselves. Everyone has a plan for your life, for your father's company, for the fortune wrapped around your name. But you sit silent, polite, unmoving. Inside, you are already unscrewing the situation, piece by piece, like a broken toy on the kitchen table, until the parts are yours to arrange. And you succeed. Guardianship wrestled into your hands. The company's future signed over. The wealth secured. All of it yours. Not the oil wells, not the desks, but the responsibility, the risk, the weight. It sits on your shoulders, and to your own surprise, it fits. Loneliness becomes your companion. It sits beside you at dinner. It waits in the corners of your empty house, but it also sharpens you, burnishes away softness, leaves behind the steel. One night in your workshop, you whisper it aloud. I'll be the best pilot in the world. Not dramatic, not boastful, simply true in the way that numbers are true. The equation has been written. Now you must prove it. You run your hand over the curve of a wooden wing rib. You whisper the names of pilots who died chasing speed. Their names feel like both warnings and invitations. The sky is not metaphor. The sky is machine. And machines can be understood. Machines can be improved. Machines can be conquered. And so the decision forms. Los Angeles. A place where film cameras point toward the sky, where engineers hunch over blueprints in hangars, where directors yell, action, and engines roar in the same breath. But for now, California lives only in your imagination. You fold your diagrams as carefully as scripture and place them away. At your bedroom door, you pause. The fan hums above you. It hums like destiny. You close the door. Houston still holds you, but not forever. The vow stays with you, but for years, Houston is where you remain. Your mother gone, your father gone, 16 years old, and already carrying a fortune that feels heavier than steel. At the courthouse, lawyers had spoken in circles. Guardians argued. Relatives whispered about what to do with you. Some saw you as a fragile boy in need of shelter. Others saw you as an obstacle standing between them and the company your father built. You watched them with blank eyes, nodded politely, said little. But inside, you were calculating. Not just the money, not just the assets, but the angles. Who wanted what? Who could be persuaded? Who could be outweighted? When the papers were finally signed, the responsibility was yours. The company's future, the patents, the royalties from oil drillers across Texas and Oklahoma, a stream of wealth that would not dry up anytime soon. Most boys your age were worrying about school dances. You were signing documents worth millions. And yet, despite the wealth, you were profoundly alone. The Hughes house echoed. Your footsteps felt too loud in its hallways. Meals at long tables became exercises in silence. Servants appeared and disappeared without speaking. Every night you returned to your room and listened to the fan hum. The hum was steadier than people. The hum could be trusted. Loneliness did not crush you. It shaped you. It became the forge where your determination hardened. You did not weep. You did not flinch. Instead, you built. Machines, diagrams, plans. The clatter of tools was the only conversation you trusted. Your father's colleagues came to check in. Men with hats in their hands, calling you boy while secretly studying your face. They expected fragility. They expected you to collapse under the weight of inheritance. Instead, you looked them in the eye with eerie calm. "I'll handle it," you said. And they believed you, though they couldn't explain why. The truth was simpler. You already knew that worry never solved anything. That lesson had been burned into you when your father spoke of risk. "Once you've done the work," he'd said, "let go. the results will come as they may. It was a strange kind of serenity, born of ruthless calculation, and it lived in you now. Houston society didn't know what to make of you. A teenage millionaire, thin, serious, eyes always scanning the horizon. Girls your age whispered about your fortune, but you had little interest in dances or promenades. You wanted engines, propellers, blueprints. At the dinner table one evening, you pushed away your plate and said it out loud. I'm going to be the best pilot in the world. The words startled your relatives. Some laughed nervously, others rolled their eyes, but you weren't speaking for them. You were speaking for yourself, a vow, as binding as any legal document. In the mornings, you cycled to the edge of town and watched barnstormers, daredevils looping rickety planes against the Texas sky. The engines coughed and sputtered. The wings flexed alarmingly in the wind. But your eyes stayed locked on the horizon they carved. You weren't watching for thrills. You were watching for possibilities, for improvements, for the small details that separated life from death. Back in your workshop, you bent wire, carved wood, sketched wings that could hold their shape better than the ones you saw wobbling above dusty fields. Your notebooks filled with corrections, angles, ratios, numbers. Not the reckless joy of flight, but the controlled mathematics of survival. Already, you weren't just dreaming of flying, you were dreaming of flying better. And yet, beneath the precision, loneliness grew roots. Without parents, without confidants, you turned inward. Friends existed at the edges of your life, but you kept them at a distance. Intimacy felt dangerous. Control was safer. You began to crave control the way others craved comfort. At night, you whispered into the dark. Not prayers, not pleas, but blueprints, instructions, plans that no one else could hear. The hum of the ceiling fan carried them away like secrets. By 1924, the decision crystallized. Houston was too small, too slow. The future wasn't here. The future was in California, Hollywood, Los Angeles, a place where machines and dreams collided daily, where films needed aerial stunts, where engineers tinkered with experimental planes in sun-bleached hangars, where money and madness walked hand in hand, and you had both. Relatives tried to dissuade you. Stay, run the company, play it safe. But safety felt like suffocation. The fortune was your springboard, not your cage. You packed lightly, not clothes, not trinkets, blueprints, notebooks, tools, the things that mattered. At the station, you paused for one last look at Houston. The derricks stood tall against the sky. Your father's empire. But your father was gone. Your mother was gone. And you would not spend your life guarding ghosts. The whistle blew. The train shuddered forward. Fields rolled past, dotted with cattle and oil rigs. You pressed your forehead to the glass. Already, you were thinking about wings, Already you were thinking about cameras. Already you were thinking about the sky. Loneliness sat beside you like a passenger, but it no longer felt like emptiness. It felt like fuel, the quiet companion that would propel you higher, faster, further. And so you leaned back in your seat, closed your eyes, and saw not Texas dirt, but California sunlight. Not barns, but sound stages. Not horses, but engines. The future tilted toward you, and you toward it. The year is 1925. The train screeches into Union Station, brakes grinding, steam rising in white clouds that glow in the morning sun. You are 19 years old. The fortune is yours. The vow is yours. I'll be the best pilot in the world. And now, Los Angeles is yours to conquer. You step down onto the platform. The air smells different than Houston. Orange blossoms mix with coal smoke from the locomotives. Salt from the Pacific drifts faintly inland. Smog curls against the mountains like a veil half drawn. This is not Texas. This is a place where sunlight feels like theater lights. Union Station thrums with energy. Porters in pressed uniforms hustle luggage across the polished floor. Newsboys shout from corners, waving papers filled with headlines about silent stars and box office glory. Hollywood gossip spills as freely as oil once did in your father's fields. Women in sequined hats sweep through the station like moving chandeliers. Men in sharp suits carry scripts and contracts instead of briefcases. The air itself seems staged, rehearsed, ready for cameras. You hold only one suitcase, not clothes, not keepsakes. Inside are blueprints, notebooks, sketches of wings and propellers, margins filled with calculations, tools wrapped in cloth, the things that matter. Outside, Los Angeles stretches before you. Palm trees sway beside billboards plastered with faces larger than life. Rudolph Valentino gazes down, a matinee idol draped in shadow and silk. Newsstands showcase magazines covered with gossip about Clara Barr, about Gloria Swanson, about who is married and who is divorced. Everywhere, sunlight catches chrome fenders and white stucco walls. Los Angeles is not one city, it is many. Part boomtown, part carnival, part dream. Streetcars clang down Broadway. Automobiles roar past horse-drawn wagons not yet extinct. The city is a hinge between centuries, and you arrive just as it is swinging open. To most, Los Angeles is a frontier of leisure, palm-lined boulevards and silent films. But to you, it is a workshop, a place where cameras and engines, art and machinery can collide. You rent a house in Beverly Hills. It is far larger than you need, but you like the echo in empty rooms. Silence feels like possibility. At night, you stand on the balcony. The city lights stretch outward like circuits on a massive board. You imagine yourself as the engineer who will wire them together, who will bend the current. In the distance, airfields glimmer faintly, promising wings waiting to fly. The vow hums again. I'll be the best pilot in the world. At first, you play the part of a young tycoon cautiously. You attend studio parties, though you rarely speak. Directors shout over champagne. Actresses in sequins laugh too loudly. Writers argue about plots no one will remember. You stand a little apart, listening. Always listening. You absorb the truth beneath the chatter, that Hollywood is not about art. It is about control. The directors may shout action, but the one who pays the bills pulls the strings. And you, Howard Hughes, have the money. Your first film projects are modest, a comedy here, a drama there. Enough to learn the business. But modesty does not suit you. Not in wealth, not in ambition, not in life. Within months, your imagination grows larger than the studio lots. You want something epic, something that would overwhelm the senses, and so your gaze turns upward, to the sky, to dogfights that shook Europe only a decade earlier, to a vision of cinema where audiences would feel engines in their bones. You call it Hell's Angels. At first, it is a simple war picture, a few stunts, a few aerial scenes, but nothing you touch remains small for long. Perfectionism takes hold, like fire. You hire a director, then fire him. Hire another, dismiss him too. Finally, you take the reins yourself. 19 years old. No training, but unshakable. You pour millions of your own dollars into the project. You purchase planes by the dozen. Fokkers, Sopwith camels. Replicas rebuilt from scratch. Crews rebuild engines in hangars that smell of oil and ambition. Cameras are mounted to fuselages with bolts and straps. Lenses pointed where no one has dared to point them before. You hire pilots by the dozens, barnstormers, veterans, daredevils willing to risk their lives for a paycheck and a headline. The sky becomes your studio, the clouds your backdrop. On the ground, the crew groans with exhaustion. Days stretch into nights. Scenes are reshot because the clouds are wrong, because the light is wrong, because your instincts say it is wrong. Accountants despair. Advisors beg you to stop, but you never blink. Comfort does not matter. Approval does not matter. Only control matters, and control demands perfection. When pilots refuse dangerous stunts, you climb into the cockpit yourself. The engine coughs to life. The propeller spins. You take the plane aloft, cameras bolted to its wings. The first time you dive steeply, your crew below stares in awe and terror. The plane shudders. The angle is too sharp. For a breath, it seems you might not pull out. But you do. And when you land, grinning through the oil-smudged goggles, they understand. You will risk your life for a single frame of film, and that changes everything. Whispers spread through Hollywood. That boy is reckless. He's wasting his fortune. He'll be ruined before he finishes. but you do not bend. Because what you are making is not a film, it is a statement. Howard Hughes will not be ignored. And then, a shift. Sound arrives, the talkies. Silent pictures vanish almost overnight. What you have filmed for months suddenly feels obsolete. Most producers would panic, but you see opportunity. You scrap months of silent footage. You reshoot everything with dialogue. You hire dialect coaches. You fire actors whose voices fail. The budget doubles, then doubles again. The accountants call it madness. You call it inevitability. At last, in 1930, Hell's Angels is ready. Grauman's Chinese theater glows with spotlights, beams of light raking the Hollywood sky. Crowds spill across Hollywood Boulevard, shoulder to shoulder, eager to glimpse the spectacle. Flashbulbs pop like fireworks. Chatter rises like surf against the theater walls. Inside, the film rolls. Engines roar through the speakers. Audiences gasp as planes dive across the screen. Dogfights swirl. Bullets flash. Clouds tear apart with explosions. Never before has the sky looked so alive, so terrifying, so magnificent. Critics are divided. Too expensive, too reckless, too ambitious, but also unforgettable. No one can look away, and no one will forget the name Howard Hughes. The profits pour in. The gamble pays off. You are no longer the odd millionaire from Houston. You are a Hollywood player, a filmmaker, an aviator, a risk-taker whose name now fills headlines. But the applause means little. The ovations fade. The critics chatter. And you, sitting quietly in your Beverly Hills home, are already elsewhere. The theater lights dim in your mind. The crowds blur. The stars' congratulations mean nothing compared to the hum of an engine. Because the movies were never the end goal. They were only the bridge, the way to finance what really mattered. The sky. The applause from Hell's Angels has barely faded, but already your mind is somewhere else. The theater lights, the Hollywood chatter, the stars congratulating you. All of it feels small compared to the hum of an engine, because the movies were never the end goal. They were only the bridge, the way to finance what really mattered, the sky. You sit in your Beverly Hills study, the windows closed, the air heavy with smoke from a half-burned cigar. Blueprints are scattered across the desk. Wing designs, engine notes, sketches of fuselages with calculations scribbled in the margins. You lean back, tapping your pencil against your teeth. The world has planes, yes, but not the plane you see in your head. Most manufacturers design with compromise. They think of budgets. They think of regulations. They think of good enough. You don't. You never have. And so, the H1 racer is born on paper before it ever touches metal. You demand smooth curves instead of boxy frames, flush rivets instead of bumps that drag, a cockpit that hugs the pilot's body like a glove. Every decision is about speed, pure, merciless speed. When your engineers raise objections, you silence them with a stare. When they say it cannot be done, you hire others who will try. When they tell you the cost is too high, you open your checkbook without hesitation. Because the sky does not care about budgets, it only cares about velocity. In 1935, the plane is ready. The Hughes H1 racer, polished, gleaming, like something carved from a single drop of quicksilver. You run your hand along its fuselage. Cool metal, perfect seams, the feel of your obsession made real. On September 13th, you climb into the cockpit at Santa Ana, California. The morning air is crisp. Reporters cluster near the runway, notebooks in hand. Your crew looks on, tense. You settle into the seat, strap the harness across your chest, glance at the instruments, and for a moment, you feel calm. Then the engine roars to life. The propeller blurs. The racer shudders, impatient, and you push forward. The takeoff is smooth. The wheels leave the earth, and suddenly, it is just you in the sky. You level out, open the throttle. The racer responds like a thoroughbred, finally allowed to run. The world below streaks into colors. The horizon bends. Your heartbeat matches the pulse of the engine. You're pushing past 350 miles per hour, then 400. The record is yours, though you don't know it yet. All you know is the feeling, the vibration in your bones, the way the racer slices the sky like a knife. When you land, the reporters swarm. They scribble furiously. Fastest man alive. Howard Hughes shatters coast record. But you barely hear them. You are already thinking of the next flight. 3 years later, the ambition grows larger. Not a coast-to-coast sprint this time, but the entire planet. The world is in love with aviation. Amelia Earhart, Charles Lindbergh, names that echo in newspapers. But you are not content to follow. You want to surpass. And so, in 1938, you prepare for the ultimate flight around the world. Not in weeks, not in days, but in hours. Your team gathers at Floyd Bennett Field in New York. The Lockheed 14 Super Electra gleams under floodlights. Its wings are painted silver, its nose sharp like an arrowhead. Inside, engineers adjust instruments. Maps are spread across tables. Fuel calculations checked again and again. You appear calm, but inside, your stomach is a storm. What if the weather shifts? What if the engines fail? What if the navigation falters? You silence the thoughts. There is only one direction now. Forward. July 10th, 1938. You lift off. The plane climbs steady. The city shrinks behind you. The Atlantic spreads wide ahead. Hours later, Europe greets you. Crowds cheer in Paris. Reporters chase your crew, but you don't stop. The clock is the only enemy. From Paris to Moscow. Moscow to Omsk. Omsk to Yakutsk. Every leg a blur of refueling, recalculating, Relaunching, the world map becomes a string of dots, each one conquered. In Siberia, the air is knife cold. Frost clings to the wings. Inside, you huddle in your jacket, staring at dials, refusing to blink. In Alaska, fog presses so thick you feel swallowed by it, but you press forward, trusting the instruments, trusting yourself. Then, finally, America again. The outline of the coast, the familiar fields, the promise of home. 3 days, 19 hours, 14 minutes. The world around in less than 4. The record is yours. The headlines scream your name. Howard Hughes circles the globe. Speed, king of the air. America's new hero. When you land back in New York, the crowd is so vast it looks like a sea. They surge against the barriers. They wave hats and flags. They shout your name as if you are a president, a general, a savior. Confetti rains from skyscrapers. Ticker tape floats like snow through canyons of glass and steel. It clings to your hair. It sticks to your jacket. It blinds you for a moment, as if the sky itself is celebrating. Reporters ask questions all at once. How did you manage the fatigue? What was the scariest moment? What's next for Howard Hughes? You smile, thin and restrained. You tell them the truth. The only reason I made the flight was to prove the need for greater safety in aviation. They laugh, thinking it modesty, but you mean it, because speed without safety is chaos, and order is what you seek. In that moment, you are not just a filmmaker dabbling in planes. You are a national symbol, the daring aviator, the young tycoon who conquered the globe. Parades follow, dinners in your honor. Politicians shake your hand. Presidents request your presence. You play the role, smiling for cameras, but inside, the hunger only grows sharper. Because if the world is already yours, then what's left? The answer is simple. Everything. The boy who once tinkered with radios in a Houston garage now carries the hopes of a nation. The man who once risked everything for a film now risks everything for the sky. And yet, as the cheers fade and the nights grow quiet, you begin to feel something else, something you can't quite name. A tension, a pressure, a whisper in the back of your mind. Not fear, not yet, but the first hint of the contradictions that will shape the rest of your life. The ticker tape has barely settled when the whispers begin. Howard Hughes, the hero, the aviator, the golden boy who flew the world. But behind the photographs, behind the parades, another story unfolds. At night, you cannot sleep. Not the light restlessness of an excited man, but a bone-deep refusal of your body to surrender. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling. The clock ticks, the walls breathe. Your heart pounds as if you are still in the cockpit, circling the globe at impossible speed. Hours pass. You close your eyes, but the thoughts race on. Did the fuel calculations line up? Was the airframe stress higher than you admitted? What if you had missed by a fraction? What if the clouds had hidden a mountain? Sleep refuses you. You rise, pace the halls of your mansion, silent in your slippers. Servants hear your footsteps at 3 in the morning, then at 5, then at dawn. The world calls you a man of control, but inside you feel anything but. The germ fears return like a shadow. They were always there, tucked in the corners of childhood memories. Your mother wiping doorknobs, your mother boiling clothes, her voice whispering that sickness is always waiting, always lurking. Now those whispers echo louder. You wash your hands, then wash them again. You avoid shaking hands at parties, offering a polite nod instead. When you walk through public places, you feel the weight of invisible danger pressing in. It is not constant, not yet, but the seed has cracked open. In public, you are charming. Reporters admire your sharp wit, your polite but distant smile. Women lean in, curious about the young tycoon who seems both available and unreachable. Politicians shake your hand and whisper about contracts, about influence, about the possibilities of friendship with a man so wealthy. But in private, the charm erodes. You snap at staff. You demand tasks repeated until they are flawless. A typewritten memo with one misaligned letter is discarded. A blueprint with a smudge is torn in half. A servant sneezes in the hallway and is dismissed the next day. You tell yourself it is discipline, but the truth is uneasier. It is fear in the disguise of control. Your nights stretch longer. Insomnia becomes companion. The city sleeps, but your windows blaze with light. Blueprints cover the tables. New aircraft designs, new film ideas, new notes scribbled in margins until the paper curls with ink. When exhaustion finally comes, it is not gentle. You collapse into bed mid-afternoon, sleep tangled and shallow, waking with sweat and the taste of unease. Your staff begins to whisper, Mr. Hughes never sleeps. Mr. Hughes works through the night. They say it with awe, but also with unease, because genius and madness are hard to tell apart in the dark. Meanwhile, your business expands. Hughes aircraft grows quietly in the background, feeding on contracts from the government. Electronics, radars, projects stamped with the word confidential. The Air Force sees you as an innovator. The Navy keeps your number close. Defense secrets slip across your desk, and you absorb them with the same hungry focus you once gave to blueprints of toy radios. But focus has a cost. The more you pour into work, the less remains for people. Friends complain that you never call back. Romances strain under your absence. At dinners, you excuse yourself abruptly, as if the air itself has turned hostile. One companion jokes, Howard, you're married to your airplanes. You laugh politely, but deep down, the words sting, because they are true. By the early 1940s, the world shifts again. War spreads across Europe. America watches uneasily from across the ocean, and you, restless as ever, see opportunity. The aviator inside you hungers for new challenges. The businessman inside you hungers for new contracts. The insomniac inside you hungers for relief that never comes. So you dive into projects with feverish intensity, new prototypes, new engines, new designs that promise to outpace the future. But you drive your teams mercilessly. 12-hour days stretch into 16. Mistakes are punished. Successes are barely acknowledged. To the outside world, you are still the handsome tycoon, a figure of admiration. But to those closest, you are becoming difficult, unpredictable, exhausting. You spend hours locked in your screening room, not watching movies for pleasure, but dissecting them like an engineer. You demand edits to films you are not even producing. You call actors at midnight to give them advice they never asked for. The line between business and obsession blurs until it vanishes. And through it all, the sleep never returns. Doctors prescribe sedatives. You take them, but they only dull the edges. You try alcohol, but it leaves you feeling foggy, not free. So you pace. You dictate memos at dawn. You telephone assistants at ungodly hours. They stumble from bed, rush to answer, scribble your words onto paper. No one dares complain, because to be near you is to be near power, and even in exhaustion, they know proximity to Howard Hughes can change their lives. The public still sees the hero, the man who flew the world, the innovator building the future. But shadows are gathering, thin at first, then heavier, darker. In the quiet hours, when the city is asleep and your pen scratches across blueprints, you feel it pressing in. The contradictions, the control that is never enough, the fear that no invention can outrun. The boy from Houston is still there somewhere. The boy who tinkered with radios, who dreamed of the stars. But he is harder to find now, buried beneath memos, beneath calculations, beneath the weight of insomnia. The world sees brilliance. But you, alone in your rooms, feel something else entirely. Not madness, not yet, but the first whispers of the cage you are building for yourself, and the door is already closing. The cameras never stop clicking. Hollywood is a machine that feeds on rumors, and you are its favorite subject. Howard Hughes, the aviator, the millionaire recluse who sometimes steps out into the light. And when you do, there is always a woman on your arm. They call you a playboy. They call you a conqueror of hearts, the same way you conquer the skies. But the truth is stranger, softer, more complicated. Because for all your wealth, for all your power, intimacy has never come easily. Katharine Hepburn meets you in 1936. She is already a star, independent, sharp-tongued, unimpressed by most men, especially rich ones who think money buys everything. But you are different. You speak to her not like a suitor, but like a co-conspirator. She admires that. You admire her defiance, and so a romance begins. You give her airplanes. You give her rides through the clouds above Los Angeles. Together you cut through the air in a Lockheed. She laughs in the headset, her voice high and clear. The city sprawls beneath you, but up here, it feels like the world belongs only to the two of you. On the ground, you walk beside her on studio lots. Reporters hover, snapping photographs. The gossip columns scribble headlines. Howard Hughes and Katharine Hepburn, Hollywood's most unlikely couple. They speculate endlessly. Will you marry her? Will she tame you? Will you finally settle? But private moments tell a different story. In her home, she lounges in trousers and slippers, hair undone, speaking her mind without fear. You admire her freedom. You envy it. Yet your own compulsions creep in. You want her to order her life around you, to adjust her habits, to bend just slightly to your control, and she will not. Katharine Hepburn does not bend for anyone. Arguments spark. She laughs them off at first, but your persistence grows wearying. You demand schedules, precision, attention on your terms. She insists on her independence, her art, her way of life. Two meteors cannot share the same orbit for long. The collision is inevitable. The affair ends. She moves on, carrying stories of your brilliance and your strangeness. In later years, she will still speak of you with a mix of admiration and exasperation. And you will remember her as the woman you could never quite contain. Then comes Ava Gardner. The press calls her one of the most beautiful women in the world. Sultry eyes, a laugh that carries through smoke-filled nightclubs, a magnet for attention. And you are drawn to her like iron to flame. Your first encounters are cinematic. Late dinners, jazz music drifting from the stage, whispers in dimly lit booths. She is playful, fiery, and utterly unwilling to be controlled, which of course makes you want to control her even more. You send gifts, jewels, flowers, airplanes, always airplanes. But Ava Gardner is not impressed by wealth alone. She has seen too much of Hollywood's hollow promises. She wants affection, not ownership. She wants laughter, not surveillance. And yet, your instincts betray you. The same drive that perfects airplanes, that demands flawless blueprints, seeps into your relationships. You want her to answer calls when you demand. You want her to cancel plans for your sudden whims. You want her world to orbit yours. But Ava Gardner belongs to no orbit but her own. Fights erupt, explosive, dramatic, the kind that makes neighbors lean against walls to listen. She hurls words like knives. You retreat into silence, then re-emerge with apologies and extravagant gestures. The cycle repeats. Passion and distance, control and rebellion. Two forces locked in an exhausting dance. And all the while, the press salivates. Gossip columns paint you as Hollywood's mystery lover. They chart your appearances with a parade of women, most of them little more than acquaintances. Each photograph becomes a headline. Each headline becomes part of the legend. Howard Hughes, the untouchable playboy. Romance at 30,000 feet. Millionaire's many loves. But behind the headlines, you are not the man they describe. In truth, you are awkward. In truth, you often sit in silence when conversation would have been easier. You prefer the hum of engines to the chatter of cocktail parties. You are more comfortable adjusting a wing spar than holding someone's hand. Women see the legend. Few ever glimpse the lonely man beneath it. At night, when the city sleeps, you replay conversations in your head. You wonder what you could have said differently. What gesture might have closed the distance? What softness might have quieted your need for control? But the answers never come. Only the insomnia returns. Only the shadows gather. And so, romance becomes another contradiction. You crave connection, yet sabotage it. You invite intimacy, yet smother it. You are desperate to be known, yet terrified of being truly seen. The public believes you are a lover of many women. The reality is that you have truly loved only a few. And even those loves are complicated, tangled with obsession and fear. Katharine Hepburn, the one you admired but could not hold. Ava Gardner, the one you desired but could not control. They are part of your story, woven into the legend, but they are also mirrors, reflecting back the contradictions that define you. And as the 1940s press forward, another chapter waits. Not a romance this time, but a near tragedy. Because love may wound the heart, but a plane crash will nearly end your body. And when that day comes, everything about your life will change. It is June 1946. The war is over. The world is rebuilding. But you, Howard Hughes, are restless as ever. Planes are still your obsession. Always planes. You cannot stop designing, testing, pushing them further, faster. This morning begins like so many others. Blueprints scattered on your desk, coffee gone cold, engineers waiting for your nod before beginning the day's trials. The XF-11 reconnaissance plane, your newest project, gleams on the tarmac. Twin engines, polished metal, built to survey the skies with speed and stealth. It is powerful. It is dangerous. And today, you insist on flying it yourself. Your team urges caution. They tell you the plane has quirks. They tell you adjustments are not yet perfected. But you wave them off. The best way to know a machine is to feel it in your hands. And besides, who would you trust more than yourself? The cockpit smells of oil and leather. Dials blink back at you. The engines roar as you push forward. Take off. Wheels leave the ground. The city spreads beneath you like a quilt. Los Angeles in summer, glittering, sprawling, unaware of the shadow about to fall. At first, the flight is smooth. The XF-11 responds well, banking through the California air. You test the controls, feel the pull of the engines. For a moment, you smile. Yes, this machine might just work. But then something shifts. One engine falters. The right propeller locks. The aircraft lurches violently to the side. Your body slams against the harness. Warning lights flare red. The plane begins to spiral. You fight the controls with desperate strength. Sweat drips into your eyes. The smell of fuel sharpens, sickly and thick. Below, the neighborhoods of Beverly Hills roll closer. Roofs, lawns, families at dinner. You try to stabilize, but altitude is dropping fast. The engines howl. The wings shudder like breaking bones. You see it coming. The end. Impact. The XF-11 slams into a house on North Whittier Drive. Wood explodes into splinters. Glass shatters. Metal screams as it tears apart. The plane skids across rooftops, smashing into another home. A fireball blooms, orange and furious, lighting the sky. People scream on the street. Neighbors rush out, faces pale, hands covering mouths. Howard Hughes, the world's most famous aviator, is dying in their backyard. Inside the wreck, you are broken. Your chest is crushed against the controls. Your ribs splinter. Your collarbone snaps. Your lungs gasp for air that will not come. Flames lick at the cockpit. The heat sears your skin. The smell of burning fuel fills your lungs. And yet, somehow, you cling to consciousness. A Marine sergeant named William Durkin sprints toward the inferno. Neighbors try to hold him back. It'll explode, they cry, but he goes anyway. Through smoke and fire, he reaches the cockpit. He sees you slumped, bloody, broken. Somehow, he drags you out. Another man joins him. Together, they haul you across the lawn just as the wreckage erupts in a second explosion. If they had waited even a minute longer, you would have been gone. An ambulance arrives. Sirens wail. They rush you to Good Samaritan Hospital. Doctors crowd around. They whisper to each other. Collapsed lung. Multiple fractures. Severe burns. The prognosis is grim. Some doubt you will live the night. But you do. Barely. Days blur into nights. Morphine drips into your veins. Your chest rises and falls with mechanical rhythm. Machines breathe when you cannot. The pain is indescribable. Every rib feels like a knife. Every breath feels like drowning. And yet somehow, you cling to life. Visitors come quietly. They peer into your hospital room, half expecting to see a corpse. Instead, they see a gaunt, pale figure swaddled in bandages, eyes flickering open with stubborn fire. Reporters swarm outside. Headlines scream across the country. Howard Hughes crashes in Beverly Hills. Aviator, tycoon, cheats death. The world watches, Many are shocked you survived at all. Weeks stretch into months. Your body begins to mend, but not cleanly. Bones knit crooked. Nerves scream with constant ache. Scars map your skin like burned parchment. The doctors prescribe more morphine, more codeine, more pills to numb the agony. Relief comes in waves, but so does dependence. You begin to crave the haze, to fear the moments when the drugs wear thin. The line between medicine and addiction blurs, and once blurred, it will never be straight again. The Hughes who emerges from the hospital is not the same man who entered that cockpit. Yes, you still walk. Yes, you still talk. Yes, you still sign contracts and issue orders. But something has shifted, something deep. The paranoia sharpens. The need for control tightens. The shadows inside you grow teeth. In public, you try to maintain the mask. Photographers capture you in tailored suits, shaking hands with politicians, smiling thinly beside actresses, pointing at blueprints as if the fire never touched you. But in private, you are never free of it. Pain follows you into bed. Drugs follow you into meetings. Whispers follow you everywhere. Your staff notices the changes. Your temper shortens. Your demands intensify. Your nights grow darker. The crash was not just an accident. It was a turning point. The Howard Hughes who once thrilled at the sky is fading, and a new Howard Hughes is rising. A man who will retreat deeper into shadows. A man who will cling to control, even as it slips away. A man who will never be free of the fire he survived. For the rest of your life, you will carry the scars of that day, not just on your body, but in your mind, in your soul. The plane burned, the house burned, but you walked away. And sometimes, late at night, when the morphine hums in your veins and the pain recedes just slightly, you wonder if surviving was a miracle or a curse. The war is over. Factories that once pounded out bombers and bullets now stand quiet. But the world is still tense, still waiting, still nervous about what might come next. Howard Hughes has an idea, and like so many of your ideas, it sounds impossible at first. The year is 1942. World War II is still raging. German submarines stalk the Atlantic, sinking Allied supply ships. The military needs a way to move troops and tanks across oceans without risking cargo to U-boats. Ships are too slow. Planes are too small. And then you propose it. A flying boat, a transport plane larger than anything the world has ever seen, built not of steel, but of wood. They laugh at first. A wooden plane? Something the size of a football field? It sounds absurd, but you insist. Metal is scarce in wartime. Wood will work. Spruce, birch, laminated layers pressed together with new adhesives. You say it can be done. And when you say such things, people listen, even if they roll their eyes behind closed doors. The contract is signed. $18 million. Your company, Hughes Aircraft, will build the massive transport plane. Officially, it's called the HK-1 Hercules, but soon the public gives it a different name, the Spruce Goose. Construction drags. Every detail must be perfect in your eyes. Your perfectionism, once a source of awe, now becomes a source of delay. Deadlines slip, costs rise. The war ends before the prototype is finished. By then, critics circle like vultures. They call it a boondoggle, a vanity project, a colossal waste of taxpayer money. They mock the wooden giant sitting in its hangar, unfinished, unproven. In 1947, you are summoned before the Senate War Investigating Committee. A packed chamber, flashbulbs pop, reporters fill every seat. Senators glare down at you from the dais. One in particular, Senator Owen Brewster of Maine, sharpens his questions like knives. "Mr. Hughes," he sneers, "isn't it true that the Hercules is nothing more than an extravagant toy, a wooden albatross, never meant to fly?" You sit tall, pale from lingering injuries, but still sharp, still burning. You lean into the microphone. Your voice carries through the chamber. "I put the sweat of my life into this thing. I have my reputation rolled up in it, and I have stated several times, if it's a failure, I'll probably leave this country and never come back. And I mean it." The room stirs. Reporters scribble furiously, and you go on. The Hercules was a matter of national defense. It was designed to carry a payload greater than any aircraft before it, and I am determined to see it fly. The committee continues to hammer, but your defiance electrifies the public. You are still Howard Hughes, the aviator who broke records, the man who won't back down. The senators may doubt you, but the people, they lean forward, eager to see if you will keep your promise. November 2nd, 1947. Long Beach Harbor. The Spruce Goose waits, a behemoth of pale wood and silver-gray engines, wings stretching longer than a football field, towering as tall as a 7-story building. It looks unreal, like something imagined in a fever dream. Thousands gather along the docks to witness the spectacle. Skeptics, supporters, reporters with cameras ready. Inside the cockpit, you settle into the pilot's seat. The cabin is enormous, designed to hold a crew of 36, though today only a handful join you. Your ribs still ache from the crash a year earlier. Morphine lingers in your veins, but your hands are steady on the yoke. Engines roar to life. 8 Pratt and Whitney behemoths thunder against the air. The ground trembles beneath their force. The Spruce Goose begins to move, slowly, awkwardly, like a whale testing the shallows. Water foams at its sides. You taxi down the harbor, spray rising high. Some think this will be it. A brief taxi test, a show for the cameras, nothing more. But you know otherwise. You push the throttles forward. The engines scream. The wooden giant surges faster across the water. The crowd gasps. The wings lift slightly, skimming air. The hull rises higher in the spray, and then, impossibly, it happens. The spruce goose leaves the surface. For less than a minute, it flies, 70 feet above the harbor, 1 mile down the waterway. Cameras flash madly. The crowd erupts. Some cheer, some gape in disbelief, and then gently you set it back down. The flight is brief, but it is undeniable. The spruce goose has flown. You turn to your co-pilot with a thin smile. I think that's enough for today. The test is over. The myth is secured. The spruce goose has flown. The critics are silenced for the moment, but the giant wooden bird is more symbol than solution. You turn your gaze to something more lasting. Hughes Aircraft, the company that began almost as a side project, a workshop for your aviation experiments, now swells into something far greater. It is the late 1940s. The Cold War is rising. The United States needs weapons, radars, satellites, and electronics. And you, Howard Hughes, are perfectly positioned to provide them. The factory floors in Culver City buzz with new energy. Not just wings and engines anymore, but circuits, guidance systems, strange boxes of wires that promise to see further, aim straighter, strike faster. Engineers whisper about contracts with the Pentagon, classified projects, missiles that might defend the free world or destroy it. You never like to be told what cannot be done. So your company pushes into every frontier. Radar dishes rise like steel flowers. Satellites, just rumors at first, become prototypes in secret hangars. The air itself becomes territory to conquer, not just by planes, but by invisible signals flying through it. Hughes Aircraft grows into a defense giant, one of the great military contractors of America, and its profits pour quietly into your fortune. At the same time, you turn back to the airline business. Trans World Airlines, TWA, your jewel, your obsession. You pour millions into the company. New planes, sleeker designs, cabins fit for a glamorous public. The 1950s belonged to air travel, and you want your name tied to every route, every horizon, every jet cutting through the clouds. But competition is fierce. Lawsuits multiply. Shareholders question your decisions. Courts demand your presence. And you, increasingly reluctant to face the public, fight your battles through lawyers and memos. Still, for years, TWA shines. Its red and white logo becomes a symbol of mid-century optimism. Families dress in their best clothes just to board its planes. Stewards in crisp uniforms greet them with smiles. Behind it all is you, invisible, but always pulling the strings. By the 1960s, you expand again. Air West, regional routes, smaller planes hopping across the West Coast. Your empire stretches now from factories to airlines, from Nevada casinos to Hollywood studios. Few men in history have had such reach, and yet you rarely appear. When the public does see you, it is usually in photographs from the past. The dashing aviator beside an H1 racer, the tall figure in a suit at an award ceremony, the confident tycoon stepping from a limousine, the real Howard Hughes, the man who spends nights pacing dark hotel rooms, wrapped in tissues, issuing scratchy, tape-recorded commands. That figure remains hidden. But hidden or not, your fortune grows. Hughes Aircraft alone swells into one of the most valuable private companies in the world. Billions in government contracts, thousands of employees, research that will shape the future of flight, space, and war. Quietly, you become one of the richest men alive, not in public glamour, not with yachts and palaces, but with stock certificates and classified contracts. Presidents know your name. Senators speak it in cautious tones. Union bosses tread carefully when your interests are at stake. Even foreign governments look over their shoulders, aware of your unseen reach. Your influence runs like a current beneath the surface of American life. Not always visible, but always felt. And yet, as the money piles higher, so too does the isolation. Your business empire thrives, but you, its architect, withdraw further from the world that praises you. The casinos in Las Vegas, the airlines soaring above the clouds, the satellites circling the earth, they all carry your mark, and yet you live like a ghost inside them. By the end of the 1960s, the contradiction is complete. Howard Hughes, one of the most powerful men in America, is barely seen, barely heard, barely touched by daylight. But power is not always in the open. Sometimes power sits in shadows, issuing commands that ripple outward into the world. And that is where you are most comfortable now. Las Vegas at night is a fever dream. Neon signs buzz, casino floors hum with dice and laughter. Showgirls strut under hot lights, and above it all, in penthouses sealed from the world, you begin to disappear. It starts quietly. A preference for privacy, a demand for quiet rooms, a dislike of strangers. But slowly, it grows into something else, an empire of isolation. You move into the desert inn. At first, just a guest, then a tenant, then the owner. Because when the hotel asked you to leave, you simply bought the building instead. The suites become your fortress. Windows blacked out with heavy curtains, lights dimmed, air filters installed, servants whispering in the hallways. You rarely emerge. When you do, it is late at night, moving like a shadow down the corridors. Inside, your routines tighten. Milk in specific cartons, opened only in exact ways. Food arranged just so. Everything wrapped, sealed, untouched by outside hands. Germs are the enemy, and you are at war with them. Your mother's voice echoes across the decades. Wash your hands, Howard. Do not touch that. Be careful. Her warnings bloom into obsessions. Your aides obey without question. They must, because your word is law in these darkened rooms. You issue commands in memos, on scraps of paper, on tape recordings full of static and coughs. Do not let anyone in. Buy this hotel. Sell that airline. Move the engineers to Culver City. The orders never stop. Your staff withers under the pressure. They sleep in shifts. They eat when they can. They fear the knock of an intercom summoning them at 3 in the morning. One wrong brand of tissue box. One mistake in milk handling. And their jobs, their lives are in danger. Yet none dare quit. Because to serve you, even in madness, is to orbit the most powerful man alive. You move from the desert inn to the sands, then to the landmark, then to the castaways. Hotel by hotel, you buy your way into the Strip. Las Vegas bends to you. Mob bosses grind their teeth but step aside. Politicians come quietly, seeking donations. Union leaders whisper for your favor. The city that thrives on spectacle now hides its true master in darkness. The rituals deepen. You store your urine in jars, unwilling to let waste be touched. You shuffle through rooms in Kleenex boxes wrapped around your feet. Your fingernails grow long and jagged. Your hair becomes a matted curtain. But still, the orders go out. Business continues. Deals are made. Millions shift across ledgers at your command. The contradiction is stark. The richest man in America lives like a hermit in shadowed rooms. The public speculates wildly. Where is Howard Hughes? What is Howard Hughes doing? Magazines print old photographs of you, the young aviator grinning beside a plane. The truth is hidden. A gaunt man, pacing alone, issuing decrees into the night. But the mystery works in your favor. The less they know, the more they imagine. And imagination can be more powerful than truth. Sometimes, in rare lucid moments, you reflect. The boy who once thrilled at radios and kites now commands empires without stepping outside. The pilot who once chased speed records now fears doorknobs. The tycoon who once faced senators boldly now hides from his own reflection. It aches, but the ache is drowned in codeine, in silence, in shadows. Your hold over Las Vegas tightens. Your power in Washington remains whispered but real. But your world shrinks to the size of a hotel suite. And as it shrinks, the myth grows. Howard Hughes, the phantom billionaire, the man in the dark. The headline is a question more than a statement. Where is Howard Hughes? Editors leave off the question mark because it feels more ominous that way. Where is Howard Hughes? On the Strip, the answer is whispered. He is everywhere, and he is nowhere. You live in rooms the public never sees. Penthouses reduced to twilight by blackout curtains. Carpets covered in fresh sheets like snowfields. Filters humming softly, cleansing the same air again and again. Downstairs, roulette wheels chatter and sing. Up here, only the air breathes, and you with it. You do not meet the mayor. The mayor meets your memo. You do not shake the governor's hand. The governor receives your voice on a tape, carried in a manila envelope. Your fixer translates your wishes into actions. He knows which call to place, which rumor to float, which rumor to kill. You remain the subject, never the verb. The verb is done for you. Casinos change hands because you frown. Hotels dim their signs because you squint. A blinking shoe across the boulevard annoys you, so you buy the whole building to silence it. People call it caprice. They are wrong. It is control. It has always been control. Your company gathers its limbs under a new name. A holding shell with quiet offices and very loud balance sheets. Lawyers draft maps in ink. Accountants draft maps in numbers. On their maps, the strip looks like a backbone. Your property's a vertebrae. The city moves because your spine says, move. At 3 a.m, your aides wait for the intercom. The light will blink. The voice will crackle. The instruction will be specific to the point of poetry. 2 quarts of milk. Seal the lid with tape in 2 lines only. Boil the spoon. Do not speak when you enter. They repeat the words back like pilots before takeoff. Checklist complete. Doors armed. Cabin secure. You eat little. You sleep in bursts. You speak in lists. You fear the world and yet bend the world. Your germ rules multiply. Your business holdings multiply faster. The paradox becomes the point. A man can be weaker each day and bigger each night. The bellmen tell stories. They tell them quietly, even to one another. A figure like smoke in the hallway at 4 a.m. A door that opens and closes with nobody in between. A doctor summoned who never enters the room. A barber who leaves with the hair still in his hands. Sightings, always at the edge of the eye. The newspapers feed on mystery. They feed well. Photographs of you are all young, all smiling, all yesterday. Reporters print them again and again, like prayers to an absent saint. What is he building? What is he buying? What is he planning? What is he afraid of? Each question sells papers. Each answer is guesswork in a tuxedo. Your inner circle changes shape. Men in neat suits and quiet shoes rise and set like desert suns. Some come from the worlds of law, finance, and shadow. They learn your rituals, then vanish under the weight of them. You watch them through the fogged glass of your routines. You reward loyalty. You punish error. You keep nobody forever. Politicians arrive by back elevator. They wait in rooms that smell like new envelopes. They are given coffee and silence. They leave with promises they think were their idea. You never touch their hands, but you touch their maps. Zoning moves. Licenses appear. Schedules flexible. The city learns to anticipate your absence. It learns to interpret your quiet. The strip grows taller around you. New towers rise like playing cards stuck in green felt. You pick where the next card will go. You pick how brightly it will glow. Your phone never rings publicly. Privately, it never stops. a low voltage storm of wires and requests. Buy, sell, delay, proceed. Your yes is a wind. Your no is an eclipse. In a safe, behind a wall, behind a painting, there are letters you will never mail. Notes to the boy you used to be, promises to fly again. Lines to say to someone if you ever walk out into the daylight and meet them. Instead, you pace. You dictate. You listen for the hiss of disinfectant. You rehearse the day you will open the door, and it will not hurt to open it. Outside, men who once ran this town with steel eyes and heavy rings adjust their expectations. They do not like ghosts. They cannot threaten a door that never opens. They cannot bribe a man who refuses to touch the money. So they nod. They smile. They do business with your emissaries and leave quietly. They tell themselves the city has not changed. But cities always change, especially when a shadow buys the skyline. You are accused of indifference. You are accused of meddling. You are accused of never being present. You are accused of being everywhere at once. All of it is true in parts. None of it is true in whole. You are a man with a set of rules and a set of fears and a set of resources unmatched by any citizen of this desert. You are a weather system with a human name. A magazine runs a cover with only your initials, H. The text inside admits it knows less after 40 pages than it did at the start. The article wins awards. It is still mostly echoes. Television talks about you when it needs mystery. Late-night hosts make jokes that land like questions. Is he alive? Is he building another wooden airplane? Is he tunneling under the strip? Is he somewhere else entirely? The camera cuts to neon. The audience laughs. The light keeps blinking. You do not watch. Your aides do. They report the tone, not the content. They know better than to repeat words that might haunt your hallways at night. A city council votes. A state board meets. A federal office sends a letter with a seal impressed like a coin. Your fixer reads each line carefully and drafts replies that promise nothing and accomplish much. The replies are patient. They are courteous. They carry weight without raising their voice. They are your voice, translated for the world. Sometimes you press your palm against the cool glass of the window and try to remember the sun as more than a glare. You try to remember the smell of oil and canvas, the way the stick felt alive in your hand at speed, the way the horizon ran to meet you when you lifted off. You try, and then you turn away. Memory is risk. Risk is contamination. Contamination is danger. Your rules tighten. Your world tightens with them. The city expands to fill the space you refuse. You acquire land the way other men acquire hobbies. Desert parcels that look like nothing until the future arrives and asks permission to exist. You sell permission by the acre. The skyline pays rent to your absence. A banker visiting from out of state asks where your office is. A local laughs. Up there, he says, pointing to the top floor of a building whose curtains never move. But he is only joking because the real office is wherever the memo lands. Your name becomes shorthand, not for a man, for a method, for a presence that cannot be photographed. Investors ask whether you are in. Contractors ask whether you are watching. City planners weigh unspoken preferences and call them policy. The Strip adjusts its tie in mirrors you will never look into. You think about leaving sometimes. You imagine a dawn drive into the desert, windows down, radio low, dust rising like confetti behind the car. You could stop on a road that points at mountains and stand where no one has breathed for hours. You could inhale. You could be a person again. But the door is heavy. The hallway is long. The elevator button has been touched by hands you do not know. So the desert remains on the other side of glass. Your legend does the walking for you. It strolls the casino floors in your absence. It rides the elevators and remembers to face the door. It shakes hands at ribbon cuttings you fund, but do not attend. Your legend tips well. Your legend smiles. Your legend is taller than you are now and healthier. It wears your initials like armor. There is a comfort in the ritual of influence. It requires no sunlight. It requires no contact. It requires only precision. And you have always had precision, even when your hands tremble, even when your voice thins to a thread, even when the night lasts a little longer than it used to. The Strip glows. The city grows. Your memos move. You remain. A question without a question mark. Where is Howard Hughes? Here, there, everywhere, the lights obey a silence on the top floor. Sometimes the city holds its breath because a rumor says you left last night. Sometimes it breathes again because a new secretary says she heard your voice through a door at dawn. The truth is both and neither. The truth is that you have become the rumor. You are present by absence, power by proxy. A rumor that owns real estate. A myth that signs checks. And as the decade turns, the myth only deepens. The suits grow darker, the curtains heavier, the voices softer. The question remains, and that is the answer you prefer. Where is Howard Hughes? Exactly where he needs to be. Just out of reach, just out of sight. Close enough to touch the city without being touched by it. The neon blinks its acceptance. The slot machines laugh. The carpets hush. Footsteps you will not take. And the desert night keeps your secret because it understands how to hold silence. The phantom billionaire rules by memo. The city moves by inference, and the world watches a closed door that opens only in legend. The 1970s arrive quietly, and with them, a slow unraveling. You are still wealthy beyond measure, still powerful in contracts, casinos, and whispers. But your body begins to betray you. Your once commanding frame thins to bone. Your hair, once slick and dark, grows long, gray, and tangled. Your fingernails curl into claws. Your skin bruises at the lightest touch. The empire remains vast. The man at its center shrinks. Pain rules your hours. The plane crash of 1946 still haunts every step. The burns, the fractures, the scars, they never healed fully. Morphine became the bridge across pain. Codeine became the rope that tied you to sleep. And now, those ropes bind you too tightly. Every order you give drips through the haze of medication. Every thought arrives through fog. Still, the orders flow. Assistants line up outside your door, tape recorders in hand. Scratchy reels capture your whispers. Buy this stock. Move the engineers to Nevada. Send the money through Switzerland. They nod and obey. Some shake their heads in private, unsure if the words are genius or madness. You relocate constantly, not for business anymore, but for escape. From Vegas penthouses to Bahamian suites, from Managua hotels to London flats. Always at night, always by private jet, always shielded from curious eyes. Each move justified by fear, fear of germs, fear of scrutiny, fear of enemies, both real and imagined. Your employees grow gaunt. They follow you across continents, carrying memos, milk cartons, and disinfectant spray. They whisper about their exhaustion, but they remain. To serve you is to orbit power, even as it burns them. The world outside continues. NASA lands men on the moon. The Beatles break up. Vietnam drags on. Presidents rise and fall. And through it all, rumors of you multiply. Some say you've died. Others claim you live in a secret lab, building machines no one can imagine. A magazine publishes a supposed autobiography, ghost-written by a con man, that fools even your publishers. The lines between truth and myth blur until they are one. Your weight drops alarmingly. The man who once strode runways with movie stars now struggles to walk across a room. You pace in slippers made of Kleenex boxes, a parody of your once proud stride. You refuse haircuts, refuse doctors, refuse sunlight. You live as a patient who denies the diagnosis, even as the symptoms worsen daily. In the Bahamas, aides watch you shuffle through the suite, muttering about dust motes. In Nicaragua, staff hold meetings in whispers, terrified of doing the wrong thing. In London, the fog outside your window mirrors the fog inside your mind. Each city becomes a cocoon, each cocoon smaller than the last. Your voice, when recorded, is frail and thin. Commands are broken by coughing fits. Sometimes you forget your own sentence midway. Sometimes you repeat the same order twice in the same hour. And still, your aides write it all down. Because to question you is to risk everything. Doctors beg to see you. Courts demand your presence. Politicians wonder if you are even alive, but you remain hidden, moving like a rumor across the globe. You are seen only in shadows. a figure hunched in an airport hangar, a silhouette guided into a limousine at dawn, a stretcher covered with sheets carried past flashing bulbs. No photographs, no interviews, no proof, just whispers. The paradox deepens. The richest man in America looks like a beggar hidden behind curtains. The aviator who flew around the world now fears the air itself. The tycoon who ruled Hollywood now refuses to meet his own reflection. You live in absence, and absence becomes your presence. In your darker moments, you mutter about enemies. You believe spies hide in hotel vents. You fear germs carried by dust on shoes. You demand new rules daily. How milk should be opened. How peas should be served. How sunlight should never touch your skin. The rules keep you alive, or at least they make you feel alive. The Strip carries on without you. Casinos change hands. Mobsters shift allegiances. Politicians rise on tides of donations you no longer deliver. But your shadow still lingers. No one forgets you own the penthouses. No one forgets you could return at any moment. Howard Hughes remains the ghost in the neon. Your decline accelerates. The drugs numb pain but blur days into nights. You eat little more than soup and chocolate bars. You barely sleep. When you do, it is shallow and fractured. Assistants keep journals, hoping to make sense of the chaos. They record your weight loss, your rules, your coughs, your strange instructions. The journals will one day become evidence of your unraveling, but for now, the routine continues. You whisper, they obey. The lights blink outside. The curtains remain shut. The 1970s grind forward. The world modernizes. Your empire still grows on paper, but the man who built it grows frail in silence. By mid-decade, your body is almost unrecognizable. Skin clings to bone. Teeth rot. Your eyes sink into shadowed sockets. You live as a myth trapped inside flesh. The myth is still powerful. The flesh is breaking. The decline cannot be hidden forever. Even the strongest shadows thin with time. Even the richest man cannot buy eternity. And so, the final chapter begins to approach. The aides see it. The doctors whisper it. The world waits for confirmation. Howard Hughes, the aviator tycoon, is flying lower than ever before. But still, the story is not finished. Death is not the end of your story. If anything, it is the beginning of a new one, because your greatest creation was not a movie, not an airplane, not a casino. It was an institution. In 1953, long before your final decline, you made a decision. You took the wealth pouring in from Hughes aircraft. You folded it into something permanent, something untouchable. The Howard Hughes Medical Institute, founded quietly in Delaware, endowed with millions, structured to endure. At the time, few paid attention. It looked like a tax shelter, a convenient way to protect profits. But the truth was larger. This shell would one day become one of the most powerful scientific endowments in the world. When you died in 1976, chaos consumed your estate. Family members appeared from every branch. Courts fought over scraps. Lawyers circled like hawks. But the Hughes Medical Institute stood apart, shielded by structure, protected by law, and inside its coffers lay billions. By the 1980s, the Institute had become the single largest private supporter of medical research in the United States. Bigger than the Ford Foundation, bigger than Rockefeller. A colossus of science built on the bones of your fortune. The irony is thick. The man who feared germs gave the world its strongest weapon against them. The Institute funded genetics, immunology, cancer research, neuroscience. It supported hundreds of scientists, called investigators, who pursued discoveries with freedom and funding few could imagine. They unlocked secrets of DNA, mapped the brain, studied viruses before they spread into pandemics. By the early 21st century, the Hughes Medical Institute's endowment swelled past $20 billion. Your money, reshaped into knowledge, your empire, reborn as microscopes and laboratories. For scientists, Hughes became not just a name, but a source of possibility. Grants with no strings, support for risky ideas, funding that allowed curiosity to stretch without fear of budget cuts. Nobel Prizes followed, breakthroughs piled up. The Institute became the envy of the world. And the name behind it, Howard Hughes, shifted in meaning. Not just the eccentric recluse, not just the aviator, but the patron of science. Meanwhile, your legend spread in other ways. Hollywood told your story again and again. Leonardo DiCaprio played you in The Aviator. Documentaries dissected your obsessions. Writers debated genius or madman. But in laboratories from Maryland to California, your presence was more practical. Researchers tapped into funds you would never see. They healed diseases you never heard of. They pushed human knowledge forward, carried by wealth you left behind. And so, your contradictions endure. A man terrified of germs creates the institution that fights them. A man addicted to codeine fuels neuroscience research. A recluse who avoided the world changes it anyway. Howard Hughes, the ghost in penthouses, becomes the ghost in laboratories. Unseen, but everywhere. Your other legacies survive too. Hughes Aircraft continues through mergers and acquisitions, absorbed into larger defense giants. The casinos you owned change hands, but Las Vegas never forgets who once ruled its skyline from the shadows. Airlines you touched leave their mark on aviation history, but none of it rivals the Medical Institute. That is the empire that matters. That is the structure that endures. Today, when people hear your name, they picture two versions. One is the aviator, young and daring, goggles on, wind in his hair. The other is the recluse, frail and unkempt, whispering from a darkened room. Both are true, but a third image now exists. The quiet benefactor of science, the man whose billions outlived him, the unseen patron of cures. It is tempting to call it redemption, to say that philanthropy balances eccentricity, but the truth is simpler. You were a man of contradictions, and the contradictions are what endure. Howard Hughes, aviator, filmmaker, recluse, philanthropist, all woven into one myth, all carried forward by history. And for those listening tonight, drifting towards sleep, perhaps that is the final lesson. That genius and madness often share the same runway. That wealth and fear can occupy the same heart. That a life lived in fragments can still leave a whole legacy. Your planes no longer fly. Your casinos no longer bear your name. But in laboratories across the world, scientists still work under your banner. The Hughes name still funds the pursuit of knowledge. The myth remains. The work continues. The story of Howard Hughes is finished, but the echoes remain. A boy in Houston tinkering with radios. A young man chasing the sky in silver planes. A Hollywood producer demanding the impossible. A billionaire recluse whispering orders in the dark. Genius and madness, bravery and fear, wealth and isolation, all bound together in one restless life. Tonight, you can let the contradictions settle. You don't need to solve them. You don't need to judge them. You only need to feel the slow passage of a remarkable story. Imagine the hum of engines, steady and low, a plane gliding smoothly through night skies. Clouds drift beneath, stars above. The cabin dim, the world hushed. Howard Hughes spent his life chasing speed, chasing altitude, chasing perfection. But in the end, he found only stillness. And perhaps that is all any of us find. Moments of noise, invention, and effort, followed by quiet, by peace. As you lie here now, you don't have to chase, you don't have to build, you don't have to command, you can let go. Let your breath slow, let your thoughts drift like contrails across a fading sky. Let your body sink into comfort. The empire sleeps, the engines sleep, and so can you. Howard Hughes remains a legend, but tonight he is simply a story, and stories are meant to carry us into dreams. Close your eyes, rest easy, drift into sleep.